There's a 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 year assumption about speakers and audiences that is no longer true and really hasn't been true since the 90s when the very first online meeting, I think it was Microsoft Net Meeting, maybe the very first webinar slash online meeting software ever came out. And it's this: when you're in a small group, or even let's say you're speaking to an auditorium full of people, okay, if they're live and in person with you, you're on a stage or whatever, and they're there, most people, even if they're bored, will not leave because of social pressure. They don't want people looking at them, just out of politeness. They don't want to disturb the proceeding. So they might, they might doodle, they might review the handout or brochure, they might scroll on their phone, right? But they won't leave. And the smaller the group, the less likely someone's going to leave. In a webinar situation, in a Zoom meeting, in a any kind of formal webinar setting, a lot of that thinking still exists in people, and they think they have to stay because they agreed in the first place to register and show up. But understand that whole social pressure of staying is it's less powerful every day. People realize that if they're not vibing with this, if they're not interested, if they're kind of bored, if anything else comes up, it's one click, maybe two clicks, and they're gone. They drop the session, it's over. The equivalent, by the way, of doodling or scrolling on your phone in person, in a webinar context, is they switch to another tab, or they switch over to their email or something, or they just do something else, and you're reduced to audio only instead of video and audio. So here is your challenge. You can't act as a speaker like the people who are there are not going to leave if you suck, if you're boring, if you haven't put anything into thinking about their experience. Instead, you have to understand that webinars, they're not infomercials, they're not TV shows, they're not movies, they're not TikTok videos, they're not any other thing. They are, in and of themselves, their own unique medium. And you need to understand how audiences think and act and feel throughout at least a typical webinar, so that you can plug into the right things and stop doing things that are going to turn them off or make them leave. So the days where you thought you could just put slide after slide after slide and everyone in the audience, it's their responsibility to meet you halfway and understand what it is you say, that is not true, and it hasn't been true in a long time. We were just sort of all stuck in that thinking. Instead, for webinars, for any presentation really, no matter who the audience is or where physically they are, even if they're right next to you, you need to be doing 90% of the communicating and thinking on behalf of the audience, and they pick up the other 10%. It's not a 50-50 thing. It's a 90-10 thing. Now, let's talk about when you care about the audience's experience and when you don't, because it's related to this topic. Let's cover it here. Right up until the minute someone hits a go live button and you're introduced, or you show your first slide, or you start talking, right up until that minute, going backwards to when you first found out about this thing and started thinking about what you were going to say and what information you were going to discuss and so on, that's when you care about the audience's experience. From the very beginning, right up until the go live button is clicked, you care about the audience's experience. You structure it to keep them interested. You try to put interesting stuff in there. You're pivoting. You've got your own sort of internal question structure. You understand what thoughts and feelings they're going to have throughout. As soon as you're live, stop caring about the audience. You've done that work. If you care about the audience when you're with the audience has a worse time than if you actually just stop thinking about them, because you've got your content, everything's structured, you know what you're going to do, off you go. You did your rehearsals, you did your run throughs, you're fine. If you think too much about the audience's experience and, oh my God, I just flubbed that line, and I skipped a slide, I shouldn't have done that, and whatever. If you care about the audience's experience when you're live, the audience has a sucky experience. The audience wants to know that you're in control of your material. The audience wants to know that you are worth the time and attention and emotional investment that they're putting into you. The audience wants to feel like you've got control over this whole thing. And if you skip a slide, it's because that slide should have been skipped. And if you said something wrong, who cares? Right. So I'm going to swear here. I wouldn't normally swear, but I just want to like stress how important this concept is. Right up until the go live button is pressed, you care a lot about what the audience's experience is going to be. As soon as your first word is said live, you stop giving a fuck about the audience's experience. And they will actually have a better experience because you've stopped giving so much of a fuck about their experience. And you'll stop being paralyzed or nervous or running too fast or your voice too high or whatever. No, once you're live, all the prep work's been done. You don't give a fuck about the audience's. You're there to have fun yourself. You're there to relax. You're there to enjoy yourself. You're there to talk about stuff that you care about and that you think is fun and cool. And then the audience will think it's fun and cool.